22790, heavy traffic no factor at church. Depart immediately. Depart immediately.
Tensions rise in the South China Sea. With tit-for-tat rhetoric and military posturing, China and the U.S. seem to be heading toward a showdown.
We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok. We may be doing some other thing.
What comes along with the tension is fear-mongering.
The Chinese Communist Party may know where your children are.
Been banned now by India, and Australia is considering.
A wave of anti-China sentiment spreads across the globe. A closer look finds an intricate network of think tanks, politicians, and media in driving the wave.
SPI has released a report claiming that a campaign of Chinese Twitter accounts.
You are from ASPI?
ASPI is behind the hacking claims.
Often cited by media outlets as an independent policy institute, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI, is precisely the opposite. The Canberra-based institute has become a go-to think tank for many Western media outlets in terms of framing the public's understanding and attitude toward China. Senior officials in Australia have long expressed their concerns about the hawkish nature of ASPI research.
There are hawks intent on fighting a new Cold War. They have waged a muttering campaign against collaborations with China, and it's found eager acolytes in sections of the Australian media.
ASPI began taking an ever-increasing profile on what I call the so-called China threat in Australia.
The ASPI, ever since it has been set up, endless litany of pro-American literature that it gets published, particularly in the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, which is our government-run news service. They are very integral in the anti-China sentiment that you see in Australia.
ASPI has been able to establish itself in a dominant position in shaping Australia's foreign policy towards China.
In 2019, ASPI launched the China Defense Universities Tracker, a project seeking to detect security threats that China supposedly poses. While nothing spooky about China has been found via this tracker, one spook is in sight.
But what is clear is that the source of the funding. Now, ASPI acknowledges that it's the United States Defense Department, the United States State Department, this Global Engagement Centre. The Global Engagement Centre coordinator is one Miss Lee Gabriel. She's described on the website as, in that United States website, as a former US Navy fighter pilot who later trained with the CIA and was assigned to the Defence Intelligence Agency.
What's particularly concerning about ASPI is that ASPI not only gets funding from the Australian government, it gets funding from the US government, it gets funding from Taiwan, it gets funding from the Japanese, it also gets funding from the British.
A table from ASPI website shows for the financial year 2019 to 2020, U.S. State Department has entrusted ASPI to develop multiple research projects, including mapping China's technology giants amid the tensions between the two countries over the technology sector.
If you go to its website, you'll see most of the main representatives of the US industrial complex, or military industrial complex rather, Raytheon, Boeing, Westinghouse. The manufacturers of big arms are also big supporters of ASPI.
While think tanks like ASPI keep producing reports that serve the interests of their benefactors, their research has drawn criticism from both Australia and China.
We have repeatedly responded to the preposterously false reports on China compiled by this so-called institute. We hope and believe that Australia and other countries will be vigilant and distinguish right from wrong and reject the absurd fabrications by such anti-China organizations.
It's naive to think that think tanks exist only for the pursuit of truth. They exist to advocate a particular point of view.
Their research, their point of views is guided or dominated by certain kind of ideological attitude.